Hello everybody and welcome to the table. So today we're checking out a new knife from Spyderco. This one right here is the Bob Lum Tanto G10 in M390, and this is the plain edge variant of the knife. So this particular one came to us from BladeHQ. I do believe this is a dealer exclusive to their site, so if this knife is of interest to you, they're the only game in town to pick one up. And I would recommend picking one up sooner rather than later because, of course, these are limited runs, so they're not going to be around forever typically. And once it's gone, it'll probably be a while before Spyderco decides to run this particular design again. And so it's just, in my opinion, a very classy design. It comes and it goes. Every time I've seen it come and go, I've really wanted to pick one up. But, you know, the stars have never aligned, so to speak, until now. So what do we have here? So, of course, these handles, first off, this is a very nice G10 with, again, that olive drab, that green color on it. And this G10 is very impressive, very high grip G10, feels very good in hand, very grippy. So this is one of the grippier Spyderco knives I've ever handled. So which is great, again, for those so-called, tactical applications in the summer. If your hands are sweaty, this knife is going to ensure a really good grip on the handle. It's a nice long handle. It's a big knife. The dimensions of this one are really well sized, especially if you're wearing gloves. So let's go ahead and pull out the ruler and check out the size of the knife because it is a little bigger than I expected it. And of course you can read the specs online, but feeling it in hand is always another story. So let's just go ahead and hold it up next to the ruler here and get a rough idea. We can see the overall length is, almost 9 inches long in overall length. So a little over 8 3/4 there. Our blade length, the sharpened edge alone is 3.5 inches right there. And from tip to scale, it's more like 4 inches. So it's definitely feeling like a bigger knife in hand and kind of weighty as well. So it's not a heavy knife, I would say, but let's go ahead and pull out the scale because it definitely has some heft to it. So let's check this out. So the Lum Tanto is going to be coming in, 4.4 ounces. So it's not a super heavyweight knife, but it definitely, you can feel it in your hand. You can feel it in your pocket. Feels really nice. And so when you look at this knife, again, we have all G10 and steel liners. Now there is none of that fancy titanium on this knife. It is all steel and G10 construction. Feels very solid. And even if you look in the construction there in the handles, you can see for weight reduction, they did do some skeletonizing on this frame on the inside there. I don't know if you can see that with the angles, but there are some big round holes milled out of these liners to further reduce that weight. So that's always a nice thing to see with production knives. And in terms of production, again, this is a knife that was manufactured for Spyderco in Japan. So this is one of their Seki City models. So again, the fit and finish from Japan, from Taiwan in general, Spyderco in general, honestly, all their knives have excellent fit and finish regardless of what facility you're getting it from. So we have the Japanese markings there. We have the Lum marking on there for the designer. And of course, these gorgeous grinds on that Tanto tip right there. Very nicely done satin edge. Spyderco markings on this side as well. And of course, we can see this is an M390 steel blade. So M390 may not be, of course, the steel of the week, the flavor of the week, so to speak, but still very solid steel, very much high end in the world of knife steels and worth your time, at least in my opinion, of course. And so this is a liner lock knife, and the liner is nice and thick, very solid. There are no frills to it, but we do have this nice cutout here in the handle, so it's not difficult at all to engage, to close one-handed, no issues with that. So spider hole flicks just fine. I'm not a big Spidey flicker guy, so don't, judge the knife based on what I can do or not, but it's smooth enough. And it's not running on bearings. This is a traditional knife. We can see in there the bronze washers. So I don't know if you can quite see that on camera, but definitely have some bronze washers in there. And that's something that's going to definitely smooth out with time, smooth out with use. So overall, just a pretty hefty knife, very impressive. We have the standard Spyderco pocket clip on here, as you can see. And it's going to be one position only. So this is tip up, right-hand side carry. So it is kind of a shame that on such an expensive knife, they did not drill it for left-hand carry or tip down carry. With this particular clip style, it does sit kind of low on the frame. So if you are carrying this knife, you're going to have a good chunk of knife sticking out of your pocket. And maybe for the purposes of this knife, that was intended. And definitely works out if you're using a lanyard, because that lanyard will be very accessible hanging out of pocket if you are carrying this with the pocket clip. So nice big wide lanyard hole. You'll definitely easily get paracord through there. So no trouble at all. And it does have its own tube for the lanyard hole in there. But as you can see, fully flow through design with pillar construction. One small little detail I really liked and I saw on this design is, it's going to be hard to see, but if you look at the stop pin, let's go ahead and check that out right there. Check out the stop pin right there. It has a flat face. So it appears that our stop pin, you can even see kind of a little texture on there. Looks like our stop pin has kind of like a D-shaped pattern to it, and that will help keep it from rotating. So if you are to take the knife apart, put it back together, hopefully, ideally, that would aid in reassembling the knife and putting the stop pin back in. Hopefully help with the wear and tear on it as well. You know, make it easily replaceable if it was ever needed to do so. And again, being a liner lock knife, you can check out the lockup, which is perfect right there on the middle of the tang. Nice and full, no play. Centering is favoring the lock side a tiny bit. Is it rubbing? No, it doesn't look like it's rubbing either side, but slightly favoring, which again, with a knife on washer, sometimes that happens. Is it something I'm going to work on fixing? Absolutely not. So kind of going more with that classic styling, the single position pocket clip. If we look on the blade right here, we do not have any jimping, so there's no room for grip. And this would be a great place to improve on that design. Throw some jimping right here where your thumb rests when you're holding the knife. That would even make it better. You know, so it's one of those things that sometimes their improvements can be made, but nobody thinks to ask, hey, should we change this? And they just kind of keep the same pattern as is. And so I think that's probably the idea here. And so very few changes over the years to the Lum Tanto design. And really, there's nothing wrong with that, because when you have something that works very well, is very effective and very good looking, not a whole lot of, reason to change what we have going on here. But let's do some quick size comparisons, because I have some other Spyderco knives on the table and a few popular ones. So let's just set this down right here. We have the Paramilitary 2. So for a size comparison, let's set those side by side. And you can see definitely within the same ballpark, but the Paramilitary 2 is going to be slightly lighter in weight, slightly smaller, overall in dimensions, different lock type as well as the Para 3, which again, we know is going to be smaller. So check those out side by side. So definitely a nice comparison there. 3 Spyderco knives on the table, but we are not done quite yet. So let's go ahead and remove the Paras from the table. And I have some other of our interesting Spydercos, and these, we have one from Taiwan, another brother from Japan. So let's check out right here. This is the Gayle Bradley 2, and we'll put that on for size comparison, and we'll make one other quick comparison as well. But again, very much in the same ballpark in terms of size and dimension. And for another Japanese-made Spyderco, let's pull out something rare, something I thought of when I wanted to compare these knives. This one right here is the Ayoob, so Massad Ayoob design, very unique shape, another Seki City knife. So I guess you hold it like that to compare it. But in terms of blade length, you can see very similar blade length, very similar overall length as well, despite the unique shape. But I wanted to make some comparisons here because of that G10. We had this super rough and grippy G10 on the Lum design. The Ayoob is also Japanese, so both of these were made in Japan, and the grip on the Lum Tanto is much grippier than on the Ayoob. Not that this one's smooth at all, but just in comparison, you can definitely feel, by hand feel, a difference in our G10 roughness. The Taiwanese made model, so this is the Gayle Bradley 2, is a Taiwanese made Spyderco. G10 is, again, not quite as rough as what we're getting on the Lum. So neither are smooth. Now, again, if you were to compare these just without any other size, without any other knife on the table, you would say they're perfectly grippy and perfectly usable. But just having them side by side in hand really gives you that chance to check things out and make some true comparisons with these knives. So I just wanted to share my thoughts. And it's really the design. Like I said, it's classic, you know, like the Gayle Bradley's classic, beautiful design. The Ayoob, I don't know if we call this classic, but it's certainly unique in the world of Spyderco, and Spyderco makes some pretty unique stuff. We can all admit that, right? But the Lum Tanto design, oh man, this one just looks good. Very handsome, very utilitarian. This is the user if you ever had one, or if you ever wanted one. But again, BladeHQ has them, and they're not going to be around forever. While I don't know if it's necessarily a limited run, in the past with my experience on this thing, I've noticed these go out of stock and they go bye-bye until the next run, which could be years from now. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop a comment below. Hope you enjoyed watching, and I hope you all out there have a nice day. See you later.